It's finally Friday. It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show, presented this week by NYRA's Starter Loyalty Program. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. We're glad to have you with us. Ray, it's been a tough week for the racing industry. We lost a veteran jockey in Jose Luis Flores in Pennsylvania. Just devastating, hard to swallow. These kinds of things do happen in a dangerous sport, but it doesn't make it any easier to deal with. What did you know about Jose? What contact did you have with him? What is your understanding of him as a person and a jockey?
Well, he's one of those guys that he's what I would call a lunch pail jockey. He came to work every day. He was well respected by his peers. He mentored a lot of younger jockeys. He's been around. He started his career in his native Peru. He went to Panama, and he came to the United States. He became the winningest all-time money winner at Parks, member of the Racing Hall of Fame at Parks. And as I said, just extremely well thought of by his peers. Wasn't a big name in the national scene. Had one graded stakes win in his entire career, but these are the kind of jockeys, the kind of athletes, competitors that we depend on day in and day out, and he was as good as they come in that regard.
Well, you talked to John Velazquez yesterday, the chairman of the Jockeys Guild, about when something like this happens. You know, what's the response among jockeys nationwide? Here's what he had to say.
I'm out there every day. I have the same risk that he does. I had an accident 3 weeks ago. It's the same way. Horse breaks down and disappears. Thankfully, nobody went over me and rode over me. So, I mean, it happens. And I'm in the same position that he is every day. Every time I get on the horse and I get into that racetrack, it's the same thing. So it hits home. I mean, it really does. I mean, we all have families, and even the younger guys come here. It doesn't matter whether you're young or older. You have families. You have things to support, and you're here to do a job. I mean, you try to do the best. How can we do better?
Yeah, Johnny was talking about his own situation, but you know, every time he gets on a horse, he knows that could be the time that his number comes up, and I think he speaks for the entire jockey community that way. They don't know. They don't know if a horse that they're on has a hidden injury that went undetected, that could suffer catastrophic injury in a race. But you know, that being said, the industry has to do better protecting the horses and ultimately protecting the jockeys. There have been improvements over the last 10 years. The equine injury database is one thing. They're getting a much better understanding of high risks with horses, but there's got to be action taken on those. And there's a lot of other things that are important to John as chairman of the Jockeys Guild that he feels the industry is not doing.
Well, just to point out the numbers with the equine injury database, they've dropped since 2009. Fatalities have dropped 20% on both turf and dirt when you combine it. So that's a significant reduction. So the risk of fatalities, rather, 20%. That's a huge number. So the industry should be applauded for that. But of course, Velazquez, as you said, had several things that need to be addressed. One of them is pre-race exams, making sure that the communication is really good between the vet and the jockey, and that the exam actually takes place, because not every state requires that vets give pre-race exams, which seems absurd. So there's one easy thing that needs to be fixed. Another one is paramedics. Now, there are different levels of emergency responders. EMT is the most common, but paramedics have more training. And Velazquez would like to have paramedics on scene to be able to attend to fallen riders, because those minutes right after a spill are absolutely crucial.
Not only to save the life, but also to minimize the injuries. How you move, how you transport into the hospital, make sure you're taking care of the proper way, that you actually ice the person as best you could, cool down the temperature of the person. You don't have to put any IV or anything like that. That's another step that we can do later on. But even to cool the person when actually the person has a head injury or neck injury, spine injury, those are things that need to be in place.
That's one thing that's important to the guild, to get paramedics at the track in the event of injuries. But there are a lot of preventative measures, and there's a lot of educational things. It hasn't been that long that the jockeys have had an injury study for them. We're studying fatalities in horses. We're also trying to better understand jockey injuries, concussion protocols, that sort of thing. And the problem is there are some tracks that simply will not participate. And the problem that I have right now with horse racing is you can't leave things up to the racetracks. Many of these racetracks now are owned by casino companies. They look at horse racing as something they have to put on in order to keep their casino license. It's up to the regulators to say, this is what is required of you to get a license to race horses, and that should affect every possible safety measure for the horses and the jockeys. And to me, it's natural for a racetrack to try to cut corners, especially if they don't really care about racing. But it's up to the regulators. It is their responsibility as a regulator to make sure everything is being done to protect the horses and ultimately the riders.
You know where this discussion is going, don't you? Where every Friday show discussion goes, which is oversight. Again, back to the idea of a national office or commissioner or something like that, so that these things can get done easier. And John Velazquez, you asked him about this, and he said the answer is federal legislation. So you're getting another voice there saying that. You're starting to hear more voices chime in, because what we do not want to happen is another 8 bells. That would be catastrophic for the industry, to have a breakdown, the death of a horse or a jockey in one of the Triple Crown races or the Breeders' Cup, where it was so prominent in the mainstream that the industry is just going to get attacked from every corner. We have to be as proactive as possible to not put ourselves in that situation. Yeah,
and everybody who's in this game knows that accidents are going to happen. Injuries are going to happen. Fatalities are going to happen with the horses. It is the most regrettable part of the game. But if we're not doing everything we can to reduce the incidents, we're really doing a disservice to the game. And I think unless we are doing that, I don't see how this game can survive unless we're doing everything possible to protect the participants.
Well, as it currently stands, our poll question is, who should be responsible for the safety and welfare of the participants in this great game, the horses and the jockeys? Is it the racetracks? Should it be the regulators? Should it be the horsemen and jockey groups? Take the poll on our website at PaulickReport.com and let us know what you think, and share your comments in the comment section of this post. All right, NYRA Starter Loyalty Program. It's underway April 2nd, and this is a pretty cool thing for horsemen, for owners and trainers in New York, because New York wants to reward them for running their horses in their state at their racetracks, and horsemen love bonuses to the purses.
Yeah, there's 4 levels of the loyalty rewards programs. The diamond level is the highest. Once you hit that level, purses are increased by 15% for those members that have reached the diamond level. So the more you race, the higher the purses you're going to be running for.
Well, thanks to NYRA for sponsoring the Friday show this week. That's going to do it for this edition. We'll talk to you next time.